Good morning, Delmar and for Elias, just for today. Let's talk a bit about more budgeting. That's always fun. But here in Quebec, there will be budget cuts, I'm sure, to come, or at least eventually, once our lack of revenue becomes even more clear. Quebec CEGEPs, the latest to face historic cuts, and students may pay the price. The Federation of CEGEPs warning that essential services like mental health support, mentoring, academic help could be reduced. Some schools have already frozen recruitment and delayed renovations due to the tight budgeting. The government notes a small 0.3% increase in funding. Unions and student groups criticize the cuts as abandoning students who will ultimately suffer the most. The liberal education critic for higher education is Michelle Setlakwe. She joins us now. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Dan. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So how exactly will these budget cuts affect CEGEP students?
Well, actually, what we need to understand is that this $151 million cut is just the latest blow to our CEGEPs. It follows, unfortunately, a long series of damaging decisions by the CAQ government. So they have a cumulative effect. So while our CEGEPs are dealing with aging and crumbling infrastructure already, there have been arbitrary budget restrictions imposed last summer by the CAQ government. There's also a cap on the number of paid hours per institution, and there's a freeze on administrative hiring. So all these measures add up to a sustained weakening, unfortunately, of the CEGEP network's ability to fulfill its educational mission. And all this is happening while our CEGEPs are welcoming a record number of students. Just to give you a number, CEGEPs are expected to accommodate 24,000 additional students by 2023. So it's quite worrisome. CEGEPs are stretched to their limits. Their projects are being suspended. Services are being cut because institutions are being forced to cut student services just to make payroll. And CEGEPs are forced to make basically heartbreaking choices just to maintain basic operations.
So some of those heartbreaking choices you mentioned, would that be some mental health and other support programs?
So what we need to understand is that for example, it could be mental health, but it's cutting on administrative staff. So think of all the people who are not teachers but offer essential services to our students. It could be any kind of student services that will take the hit: teaching aides, specialized education technicians, psychologists, etc. So CEGEPs aren't just places for teaching. It's everything around it. That's student services, academic support, accommodations, everything that's sociocultural, sports related or otherwise. That's what's at risk. And I'm quoting here because we've started hearing from a few CEGEPs. I'm quoting here Jean-François Léveillé from Shawinigan. But if you're following the recent press, that's coming out, we've been hearing from Trois-Rivières, Shawinigan, Drummondville, Sorel-Tracy, Sherbrooke, Outaouais. It's all over Quebec. All these regions will be badly hit.
Now, I know you're a supporter of Pablo Rodriguez in the Quebec leadership race. I was going through his platform because ultimately these issues are lack of money, right? It seems that the government doesn't have enough money and needs to figure out a way to generate revenue. When I look at Pablo Rodriguez's platform, I can't say that I see anything specific about how Quebec would generate more revenue, whether it's an energy project or anything else. So do you have a clue? How do we make more money in this province so we don't have to cut back on this kind of important funding?
Well, yes, I am supporting Pablo, and we do have, and this is something that Liberal governments have always been careful about, is developing our economy so that we can offer services. But in the case of what's happening in higher education right now, and it's unheard of, it's never been seen, these types of cuts, it's simply not responsible governance. In the CAQ's case, it's the direct result of nearly 7 years of financial mismanagement. And the Minister Derry, whose credibility is increasingly being questioned. And I have to bring it back to the importance of education and higher education. And for Pablo, it's extremely important. And for him, he would never weaken our institutions, and he said that before. Now, I have to ask about the CAQ, what kind of government weakens its institutions of knowledge? This is what we're facing now. What kind of government underfunds education in the middle of global economic uncertainty and tariff threats? more than ever, we need to fully mobilize our CEGEPs and universities, consider them as drivers of innovation, resilience, economic strength. Quite simply, undermining them right now is just short-sighted, and it's quite frankly, it's dangerous.
I agree. I don't want to see cutbacks to our CEGEPs and universities. I totally agree with that. But I think the CAQ government would say that they're doing this because they have to. They're running out of money. And so back to the revenue generation question, it's fine to say Pablo Rodriguez likes economic development, but give me one thing. Is it a pipeline? Is it anti-costy? How do we, what's the next big project to bring in more money for Quebec so that we can continue to pay for these services? Our current level of revenues cannot sustain the level of services that we have. They cannot sustain the increase in immigration, the increase in student populations. Today we're talking about CEGEPs. How do we make more money as a province, Michelle?
That's a very good question. First of all, we need to hear from each region. We can't put out a plan that's mur à mur. We need to work closely with municipalities, with each region. We need to make sure that we have our immigration levels are sufficient so that our businesses are thriving. We have to make sure that we're forming, we're educating our young Quebecers, and also that we're bringing in all these talents from abroad. We need all hands on deck to increase innovation, productivity, and cutting back on higher education and weakening our CEGEPs and universities is certainly not the way to go. To go back specifically to your question, is there a specific energy project on the table right now? You mentioned pipelines, etc. No, but when there will be, we need to look at them. We need to think about social acceptability. We need to think of the economic impact on all our regions. And we have to have an open government, open leadership, tapping into everything that's going on specifically in each region to make sure that the needs are met and that we're opening up the windows to Quebec development. And right now with the CAQ, we're closing windows where it's really not the way to go right now. It's quite unfortunate when you're at a point when you're hurting your CEGEPs and your universities. It's quite worrisome.
Michelle Setlakwe, Quebec Liberal Party MNA for Mont-Royal, Outremont, and opposition critic for higher education. Thanks very much. And
thank you.
Enjoy your week.